Hello everybody and thank you for joining me. This is Sierra from Serrated Designs and today I'm hanging out on the ScrapbookPal YouTube channel. So let's jump in. So I do like to cut down my cardstock when I start a project. I like to know what I'm working with. And for this project, I chose to work in a white, navy and gold color palette just because I think that they look really pretty together. So I brought in some navy and gold cardstock from my stash and I am going to use an A2 sized base, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So for my gold mat, I cut it down to about about an eighth of an inch smaller than my A2 base. And then my navy panel, which will be on the top, is about 1/4 of an inch smaller than my A2 base. I generally kind of eyeball my measurements, but I like to have a thin border around my layers just because I think that it frames it really nicely. So it's kind of what I aim for. And then here I just have a piece of double-sided adhesive. I actually usually forget to do this, but I thought it would be really smart for this project because I'm going to use some really pretty and delicate snowflakes. And for the adhesion on my card panel, I thought this would be a really good idea. So I have the delicate snowflake dies from Spellbinders, and I picked out two of the they're all really pretty, but these two here specifically, I really thought were quite pretty and delicate. So I chose to use them throughout the card in a couple of different ways. And I'm just going to run this through my die cutting machine. Sorry, you can see a little bit of my face there and my phone. I do film on my phone. So when I use this shim, you can see me sometimes. That's kind of funny. So I did cut out, I ended up doing 6 snowflakes, so 3 of each. But this card panel, I couldn't fit it completely on. So I got 3 of the smaller snowflake, which is the one you see me cutting here. And then for the other snowflake, you're not going to see me lay it here because I did it separately, but I did end up kind of putting it in that bottom corner and then just had some pieces hang off. You'll see that when I go to actually try to adhere it onto that panel. I just didn't want to waste the adhesive sheet that I have going on. So I had to have some laying off the side, but I thought that was okay because I was going to trim off the edges anyways. So I wasn't too concerned about that. But you could, of course, do another piece of adhesive sheet. I just didn't feel like I needed to for the few that I'm going to have here. And I will have some gaps when I do lay down all of my snowflakes, but I'm going to fill those in with some really, really pretty gold pearls at the end. So I knew that there was going to be some spacing issues. You could, if you were concerned, cut out like little circles. You could have done that with the excess of that navy cardstock that had the adhesive sheet on the back and cut out like little circles to kind of fill it in. But I knew I was going to bring in pearls for that, so I wasn't really concerned. And this is kind of funny. I've never used an adhesive sheet before because usually, honestly, I forget. So I just use liquid glue. I use liquid glue for pretty much everything. I think that it's, one of the best ways for me to have a little bit of time to move things around. But I really wanted to try this and I did struggle a little bit, mostly with this snowflake. I think it's just because it was the first one. So I brought in my craft pick and kind of just used it to gently lift up the backing sheet so that I could use the adhesive. But it was a little bit of a struggle, which was kind of funny. But I did get there in the end, so it was okay. And I chose to go navy on navy simply because I felt like I wanted some texture in the background, but I didn't want to take your eye away from the focal snowflake that we're going to add on top. So my answer to that was just to kind of use the navy cardstock on top of itself. Now you could absolutely use an embossing folder to do this instead of what I'm doing here. I just really wanted to showcase those snowflakes and give them kind of their moment to shine because they are beautiful. So I chose to just do this, but you could also stamp like a background stamp in VersaMark instead of a color and then clear emboss it if you wanted to, and you'd get like really interesting texture in the background without stealing the show. I just had never done this kind of a technique, so I really wanted to try it and see how it would look. So that's kind of what I was thinking when I went for these extra snowflakes kind of in the background. And then here you can see I just flipped it around from the back so I could cut off any little pieces that were hanging off of the card panel. And then for the focal snowflake, I'm going to bring in those same 2 snowflakes as well as the I have a little centerpiece. I'm not going to use it. I'm going to cut it out of gold, but I'm not going to end up using it in the end. You'll see here in a minute. But I cut the delicate snowflake out of this white glitter cardstock. And then for the same gold, I'm going to cut the snowflake I plan to do on top. So I want my layers to alternate. So I have white glitter on the bottom. I'm going to have gold next, then a white glitter snowflake. And then my intention was to put that little gold kind of flowery shape on top of that. But I ended up choosing to use a gold pearl instead, just because I liked how it looked and I knew I was going to bring in gold pearls throughout the design. So there's so many ways you could do this. That's just how I chose to do it. This would also look stunning if you did it in like a pink and gold. I love pink and gold. That's one of my favorite color combos. So there are, a few options here if you didn't want to do like a navy and gold. You could do you do purple and silver too. It would be really stunning. I have a soft spot for navy and gold, and I thought that this card design would really work well with that. So I'm going to adhere my layers together here just because I like to kind of, again, see what I'm working with before I start laying down my main pieces, because this does help me center things. Again, I have a tendency not to measure anything. I like to eyeball things. So if you were concerned, you could absolutely measure this and put a center point on the card so that you wouldn't have any issues centering it when we actually go to adhere the pieces. But me being me, I chose not to do that, and I'm just going to kind of eyeball my center point. But here you can see where I said I was going to have that white glitter base, because this die set comes with, I believe, all in all 6 or 7 snowflakes and the shadow for them. So it's a really cool die set. So I'm just going to adhere the gold layer on top of that white glitter piece. And this kind of helps separate it from the navy as well. So that was kind of my thought. You could have just gone the gold on top of the navy and not brought in the white, but because my base is white and you have that little bit of layer, those 3 colors just look really nice together, and then they help you separate the layers beautifully. So it's kind of why I went that direction. And I'm only going to adhere this more delicate snowflake in the center so that I can have some of the pieces pop up a little bit so that it gives you a little more dimension. I don't have a lot of dimension on this card. I don't know why. You could absolutely have added foam tape or something to see even the snowflake or the base layer. I chose not to. I kind of just left it to be flat. I like to mail my cards out. So if I'm going to send them long distance, I like to kind of have them be flatter. And then I also brought in some gold embossing powder, and I'm going to emboss my sentiment on top of this piece of navy cardstock that matches that background. And for this sentiment, I chose the Gnome Drive sentiment. It's another Spellbinders set, and I thought this was a really fitting sentiment. It says best wishes on the year ahead, which, considering we just started 2024, this is a really fitting sentiment, which is crazy. Time passes so quickly sometimes. It's just kind of funny. But I thought that sentiment was very fitting. And as a Canadian, it is snowing, right? We live in a colder part of Canada, so I do have a fair amount of snow. So I thought this card was super fitting for the time that we're in at the moment. So I did cut that sentiment down to a little label, and then I'm going to adhere it on a piece of white glitter cardstock. You could adhere it the way it is, and it would be a very subtle sentiment, but I wanted it to be able to hold its own against the navy background. So I added just a little bit of a white layer to it. This is the same white glitter cardstock. And then I'm just going to trim that down to give it just a little layer around the sentiment so that it can hold its own against the background and still be something you see. I don't think that it ends up pulling focus away from that really pretty snowflake that's in the center, but it does still help itself stand out from the background and, look quite pretty. And again, you could have added some dimension here as well. I chose to adhere everything kind of flat with my Nuvo Deluxe glue just because I really like liquid glue. And this is where I'm going to eyeball the center. Again, you could absolutely measure that so that it was exactly centered if that's something that you're concerned about. I don't really mind. Handmade is beautiful in its own, so I don't usually worry about that, but you absolutely could if you were concerned. And then this is where I'm going to start kind of playing with the gold jewels, they're pearls, sorry. These are from Pinkfresh, and I'm just going to adhere one large one in the center of the snowflake, and then I'm just going to kind of add them around the areas that were a little bit more bare. I did go for an uneven number as general. If you guys have followed me before, I always go for uneven numbers. They are my preferred. They just look better to me, so that's kind of what I go for. But if you prefer an uneven number, go for it. I just go for uneven. And yeah, so I just adhered some different of these gold pearls all around the design because I thought that would look really pretty. And then I'm going to hold it up here so you guys can check it out in all of its glory. I think it turned out stunning. I would love to know what you guys think of it. Leave us a like, leave us a comment, and consider subscribing. There are a lot of really talented people on this team, and I would love for you guys to check out their work as well. Thank you so much, and I will see you again very soon. Bye-bye for now.